Yeah, the world has changed. It has changed a lot. And my life has changed as a result of it also. And I feel very differently about my career since the world has changed. So I'm trying to push through those very different feelings since the world has changed. Used to be that, I would come, I could be here for a couple days, say what I need to say, and then bye. Not no mo. There's ways where there's like no fences. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, if our kids came, then you got to meet them, but after that, you don't know them. Do you know what I mean? So there was some kind of healthy boundaries for the family, and that's just gone. Like, that's just out of here. So thus, I have, hi girls, thank you. I deleted all social media off my phone. It's been awesome. It's been like 7 months or something like that. It's been beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I got it. You're the best.
Yes, thanks.
You're amazing. No, you are. No, really, you are.
Could I just encourage you?
To move my mic down a little bit. Thank you. You're the best. Thanks for watching out for me and everybody else. No, you're awesome. No, you're awesome. This is so amazing. Okay, so we're going to talk about, we're going to just be like, we're going to go a level deeper concerning spiritual health. Thank you. Concerning spiritual health. And although I am a licensed minister, I don't want that to infect you in any way or impress you. Simply, I studied, took tests, and bam, I got licensed, which basically means I can marry you or bury you legally. That's what it means. Now, anyone can baptize anybody. And today, anyone can get a license for a day to marry somebody else, too. So, the licensing for ministry is not, like, all that impressive anymore. It just isn't. To be honest with you, I've never been impressed with it, in all reality. Because when I read through that book, the best successful book ever written, John the Baptist didn't have ordination papers when he began to baptize people. They just didn't exist. Schools of ministry didn't exist. All of the constructs of church did not exist. None of it was there. All of it today that we live in is completely man-made, and I'm personally not that impressed with it. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it didn't exist. I can say that. But my history from growing up, you heard that I grew up in a violently abusive, drug-infested home, and I was violently abused as a child, and the only time I ever heard the topic of God was in the form of a cuss word, and that was it. So there was like no... we weren't church people, obviously. My parents dropped F-bombs all the time. Lots of drugs in the house, lots of violence in the house, lots of cops coming to the house and ambulances coming to the house. So this, I wasn't raised in this, Christian culture as far as the home where I grew up in. But when I was 13, my dad actually went through my one of my drawers in my bedroom, and we had just moved from Los Angeles, California to Redding, California. Not Redding, but east of Redding, a place called Palo Cedro, a little town of 700 people. And in that experience, tiny little town, we're brand new to town, and here are my parents who hotbox their children every day on the way to school. Do you know what hotboxing is? Who does not know what hotboxing is? Okay, cool. Okay, I'll tell her what a hotbox is. Okay, so for everybody that's listening right now, hotboxing is this. So I want you to imagine your parents, okay, and you're on your way to school, and it's like a 15-minute drive. They roll up the windows in the car, and they smoke a big fat joint. What's a joint? It's a marijuana cigarette. Thank you. It's very... So they smoked weed in the car with us in the back seat, windows up, on our way to school. So my dad's digging through my stuff. He finds these letters from a boy. They're love letters from a boy. How many of you remember having the love letters when you were in school, right? So I had these love letters in school. He found them. He tore up my bedroom and said, you guys are not going to go to that school anymore. You're going to this private school over here, and you're going to have to wear dresses every day. There's only 8 kids in your class, and you're going to be watched. Okay, great. So my mom had broken her neck 2 years before, and due to her breaking her neck, due to a lawsuit, she started getting checks from the people that totally broke her neck. basically. It was a malpractice suit. So because of these installments, we're not living in an 800 square foot home anymore on Grant Avenue in Redondo Beach, California. Now we moved up to this other place and we're living in the country and we have a house. Like we all have our own bedrooms and we're not eating top ramen or pasta anymore or Wonder Bread with margarine and garlic salt on it anymore. They're now having steak and chicken and, quite a variety of these different kind of foods. And we're going to restaurants sometimes and we have like clothes that were not from the thrift store or hand-me-downs from the neighbor anymore. Hand-me-down underwear, that's just going too far. I wore hand-me-down underwear. I did, absolutely I did. I was made fun of in school because my clothes were like not, normal or with the times. They were from many years before and passed through several different types of people. So anyway, so now the lifestyle began to change and my parents buy a car. They do what most people do when people get money. They just blow it all, right? So they're hotboxing us and we're now going to this private Christian school and my dad is an atheist. And I want you to picture this, okay, to kind of get the idea of my upbringing. So it's, 7:30 in the morning, we're in the car, we're in our dresses that are to our knees, no open-toed shoes, you understand? Everything has to be all well put together, which wasn't that hard for me because I was that kind of person anyway. I have to make sure that everything's buttoned right and done right. So anyway, so we, could you imagine pulling into this tiny little school? It's a church campus. I can't even call it campus. It's a church property, little tiny blue church with a little steeple on it. Smells like death because it's so old and musty and nasty. Have you ever been in a church like that? It's like, she just described my church I go to on Sunday. Anyway, so it's all musty, right? And cold in there, and the pews are hard, right? They're hardwood, and the carpet's ancient and stained up and dirty, okay? So there's this little church building, and next to the church building is 2 single-wide trailers, I'm sure, filled with mold. And that's the entire school, from kindergarten to the 8th grade. 2 single-wide trailers, all right? So itty-bitty little school. And so I want you to imagine, I don't even know how many kids were there. If there was only 8 kids in my 8th grade class, and I can't remember if we were the largest, but we were probably close, right? So tiny little school, and here you go. My parents are pulling into this church parking lot. Hot boxed. Have you ever seen a Cheech and Chong movie? This is my life. So like cloud of smoke in the car, doors open, they pull up, you pull right in and now you get out at the right time and then there's the teacher that's opening the door for the kids to come out. How many of you have ever been around a smoker? What do you end up smelling like after you've been with a smoker? Smoke. Have you ever been to a smoker's house? Been into a bar and then go home? What do you smell like? Smoke. I smell like weed. My 2 little sisters smell like weed. So door opens, and do you know that I did not realize this to be the reality until a couple years ago? Yeah, I didn't even realize it. Because from my perspective, I don't know that I stink. I didn't know I stank like Humboldt weed, because that's where they got their stuff. They got the best stuff, man, and in California, Humboldt County. That's like I just gave someone a lead. That's terrible. Someone just went, what? Find Humboldt, California. You can pretty much get anything anywhere nowadays, which is kind of sad. But anyway, so I just realized a couple years ago, like, whoa, we stank like weed. No wonder people hated us at this Christian school. No wonder, like, there was no opportunity to break in to that people. And I could never figure out why. It's like, how did they know that my parents were pot smokers? I'm serious, like, why? How did they know that my parents, like, didn't go to church? Because all these kids went to different types of churches, you know what I mean? So, like, why did they have something out for us? Oh, we smell like weed. That could be a reason. Every day, all of our clothes, our hair, everything smelled like weed. I probably had a contact high going to school every single day. I was dyslexic. No, I was high. It's very possible that I was high and didn't know that I was high. So nonetheless, so just to give you that picture, my dad would speak horrible about Christians. He hated Christians specifically. Any other religion he could tolerate, but the Christians he could not. And I never found out why. But obviously somebody hurt him from some church somewhere, somebody judged, and then of course the community that we were in, they were judged as well, and I'm sure that they could feel it. They didn't belong, they didn't fit in, they couldn't be a part of those people over there. And so therefore that obviously was translated to us children just by association, and we certainly were the kids that were those kids. We were the kids that you wouldn't let your kids play with. Seriously. We were the girls that you told your son, stay away. Don't get involved with those three over there. It's not a good idea. That's who we were. So, growing up in that environment, something happened October of 1983. Yeah, October of 1983. And it was the end of October. We were just there. It was my first chapel at this school. And I heard a message for the very first time. And again, for the very first time. Again, I'm completely oblivious of the nativity thing. I'm oblivious. Do you understand? Like, I don't have a scope for anything religious at all. Jesus is part of a cuss word. That's it. God is part of a cuss word, and that's it. There is no religious foundation of any sort at all. So that day, the school principal actually gave the message, and she spoke the message about the story of Jesus, who died on a cross and gave up his life for the salvation of all of our sins, and how he could wash us clean, that if we believed in him, that we would be cleansed from all of our pain and unrighteousness and the ta-da. And I just started weeping in the middle of this message. And I'm the new kid. Do you understand? I'm the new kid who smells like weed but doesn't know it. And I'm weeping in the back. You know how embarrassing that is? It's so embarrassing. So I'm tucking down and I'm kind of like this, and I'm wanting to make sure that none of the students that are walking right by me are actually seeing what's going on my face. School principal, her name was Leilani, came over to me and said, "Do you want to meet Jesus?" And I said yes, and I don't know why I said yes. I just said yes. She said, "I just want you to pray with me. Just say this after me." And I did, and something happened inside of me. Something literally happened inside of me. And for the first time that I can say consciously, remembering peace for the first time in my life. In 13 years of there being no peace, growing up in the home that I grew up in, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. And I was that weird kid who would grab my Bible, go off on a horse, run off into a field, sit down by a tree, open that book, not be able to understand, not be able to comprehend, read nothing, but just begin to cry and talk to him. Not knowing if I was doing it right, didn't know if there was a right way or a wrong way of doing it at all. I didn't have any training. I didn't go to church. Do you understand? So it was once a week. There's this chapel thing. It's part of the class. I had to have a Bible for my Bible class in that school. Had to memorize scriptures and all of that kind of stuff. So that was my very first time hearing the story about the Messiah and giving my life over to the Messiah. And then shortly after that, I met a boy and then a group of people, and then I made really bad choices. Everything, again, from my past, being molested. And by the way, that's when my dad started molesting me, was at the same time. Painful, confusing, right? So from that time on, I ended up getting pregnant at 17, and then there was a lot of just crazy drama that happened around there that made me then come to the place where I said, "God, if I have to be like your people, I want nothing to do with you. Your people suck." And I filled it in with a bunch of other very colorful other words that how many of you can imagine what they might have been? Between all the judgment of me getting pregnant, the manipulation of and the shame, being told that I'm hurting the child by keeping the child, that the baby would be better off with other people who are older and more established, and that's a better place for the baby. What if your baby gets touched the way you were touched by your father? What if your father gets anywhere near that child? I begin to have these nightmares, and I did the most unthinkable, horrifying, bad thing that I could have ever done for my life and for my child's life. And we've paid a price because of the choice I made at the age of 18. So I walked away from God when I was 18. Long story short, from 18 to 21, I ended up starting in business. I ended up failing in business, miserably failing. Then ended up starting again and making $250,000 my very first year after hearing a voice, December 25th of 1990, after doing a line of cocaine the night before, a big failure, something I said I would never do. I said I would never do drugs, and here I was smoking weed every day at every opportune moment that I had. Here I was drinking, abusing alcohol like crazy. Here I was offering my body to anybody that would have me. Everything I saw, I said I will never do, I did. Can anyone else in here say the same thing? Everything you saw that you said you would never do, how many of you did? Okay, well, there's a few hundred of us that know that deal. So after making those really bad choices, and I end up homeless, and I ended up offering my body for a line of cocaine, and fortunately, no one had it. And I even offered my body to someone I hated, who was the cook that I worked with. I was a cocktail waitress, and this guy was a jerk. He was mean, he was terrible, he made fun of me all the time, made my life miserable on this 12-hour shift that we had together. And I even offered my body to a man that I hated for another line of cocaine. The very next morning is when I did this, after I did that line of cocaine. And these were coworkers that I'm trying to find cocaine from, because when I did that line, it gripped me so strong that I was willing to give my body up for it. So after I got denied, there was no cocaine. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I dive into the ocean at Kua Bay Beach. Who's from Hawaii, by the way? There's a few Big Island people. Are you from Big Island? Big Island, yeah? Where do you live? Hilo side. Hey, sister. Good to see you. Hilo's beautiful. Yeah, there's a copter from Kona, from the Kona airport, right there. Y'all need to connect. Okay, anyway, so this is where I live. I live in Hawaii. Sorry, I'm homeless. Kua Bay Beach. You both know where Kua Bay Beach is. So I'm on Kua Bay Beach. I dive into the ocean. I hear a voice say, "Pick up your mat and walk." And all the feeling for the cocaine left me instantly, gone. I literally walked to my beach mat, I rolled up my stuff, and I started walking. And if you know, Kua Bay now is different than what it was then. There was no road to get to the beach at all, right? So it's hiking through the lava, right? And your car's parked at the road, so it's like a good mile before you get to your car, right? So I'm walking to the road, and I have a war going on inside my soul. And part of it is saying, "You loser, you failure, you whore, you're never gonna amount to anything, just kill yourself already." And another side speaking, "You know better than to be living like this and to be hanging out who you're hanging out with. You know that you shouldn't be hanging with adulterers and alcoholics. You know. Step up, rise up, and do something great with your life. Step up, rise up, and do something great with your life." This went on for a good 45 minutes till I got to the beach that I lived, Beach 69. Beach 69. So I get to Beach 69, which is where I slept most of the time, unless I could find somebody that would let me have their couch or whatever for that night. And fortunately, I picked the voice that was telling me that this is not the life that was intended for me, and that I needed to make a choice to step away from this lifestyle I was living and step into something that was greater. And I started to follow that voice. That same voice the next day challenged me to start a business from the trunk of my car in a payphone booth, end up making $250,000 that first year. I'm terrified to step anywhere near church. I am terrified to even acknowledge, is this the same God that met me at 13? So another year goes by, my 23rd birthday, or 24th birthday, it's 1993, on my birthday, March 2nd. My husband's best friend picks us up from the airport. We were living in California. We went back to Hawaii. My husband grew up there. I had lived there. That's where we met. He was 18, I was 22. Crazy. Anyway, really crazy. So we meet. You'll hear more about that story in another time, not this place. Anyway, so we come back home to Hawaii to visit family. We get picked up by his best friend, Chris Yeton. Do you know who that is? Do you know that name? Chris Yeton. So he says, hey, Damien wants you to come to church. Now, Damien was my husband's martial arts mentor and a father figure to him. He really mentored my husband and played a father role in his life. And he was my husband's first wealth mentor at the age of 12. And so he would begin to teach his class things about wealth and just dropping seeds about how to think and invest and things like that as they're stretching, doing splits between two chairs. That was really neat to see. I'm like, okay, hi. Anyway, so Chris picks us up and he says, Damien invited us to church, and I start just spewing evil, wicked things from my mouth. I'm like, no blankety blank way am I going to one of those places. Those people need to get a life. They're so stupid. They're so fooled. You can't trust any of them. I just start, wow. And Hans had never seen that before because we had never been in a situation where I was so threatened like that. Life was good. And then here comes the invitation to church, and I'm like, wah! Manifesting like a principality of darkness and spewing wickedness and judgment and hatred and malice against the people I don't even know. So they're like, dude, chill. You don't tell someone who's all ramped up to chill. Have you ever had somebody tell you to chill when you're all ramped up? What does it make you want to do? Punch them. You just want to punch them, man, right? You don't tell someone who's all to chill out. Anyway, so they're like, dude, chill out, man, chill. I'm like, I'm not going. And then Chris says, dude, his wife died 3 weeks ago. He's invited us to church. We are going to honor his wife and the death his family just suffered. I'm like, okay. His daughter's gonna be there. I loved his daughter, Nicole, loved her. So, okay, all right, fine, I'll go. I walk in this place, and you can only imagine. I'm sweating, my heart is racing. I'm just like, sitting out there with my feet on the seat. Look at all these losers. Judging every one of them. And then all of a sudden, I get this feeling, dude, you're gonna get bad karma. You're gonna have 5 jerks in your next first steps to success if you keep acting like this. I'm like, oh, give me a piece of paper and a pen. I'm gonna sow good karma, which is the law of reaping and sowing. I was a full-on metaphysician at the time. Tarot cards, psychics. I spent $1,500 in 1 month on psychics trying to find out what the sex of my child was. Do you wanna know who was right? 50% said a boy. The other 50% said it was a girl. Freaking liars. $1,500. I kept a log. Check. I had people chanting for me. I was the chick with the crystals. I slept with the rosy quartz and a smoky quartz because it brings you peace. Yeah, anyway. So we go. All of a sudden, I sit forward. I'm like, all right, I'm going to start sowing good karma. I'm taking notes. Man, that S is good. Hans elbows me. He's like, dude, you teach that at First Steps. I'm like, I effing know. I didn't know that was in the effing Bible. Could you imagine? Yeah. Oh, yes, I did too, sister. Oh, yes, I did. Chris then would go, dude, you teach that at First Step. I effing know. I didn't effing know that was in the effing Bible. Check it out. How many of you go to church? Wow. So I want you to imagine there's a special evangelist that's coming to town. So it's a special night, and everyone has invited all their friends, their family members. It's in this big hall. A bunch of people came together, and here is this brand new person, guest, sitting in that church, dropping F-bombs while the evangelist is preaching. Question I have for you is, what would your church do in that scenario? What would you do in that scenario? Fortunately, Damien was not embarrassed of me, didn't judge me, didn't condemn me. Maybe he was just hurting so bad that he couldn't do anything about it. His wife just died. But guess what happened that night? Because of the fact that somebody didn't escort me out of the room, when the time came when that evangelist gave an altar call and asked people to stand up and repeat these words after him, that night I rededicated my life to my Lord and Savior, and I have been walking with him ever since. That isn't to say that I haven't failed miserably, because I have. That isn't to say that I didn't have massive struggles, because I have. I still have struggles. So I'm not going to sell you this pipe dream of a lie that you come to the Messiah and all of a sudden you're perfect, because that is not my personal reality. But in my failures, he's been consistent with his love. That's been consistent. So that's my journey. That's how we ended up here. From there, I bought everything off the back table that evangelist had. I went home and I shoved it in a closet and forgot about it. Then I had a heart attack. That was special. After the heart attack, I was cleaning something and I opened up the cabinet and I found all these things, and I actually took them out, put them in my bedroom, turned on the VCR, pressed play, and I watched for 9 hours straight. And I began to learn. I get a hunger for what the Bible had said. And I'm grateful for who that man was, and I'm grateful for the tools that he had available, because those tools dug me out of a deep depression that I was in. And I'm 24 years old having a heart attack, and my company had been embezzled that year. Right after I gave my life to my God, the company got embezzled. This is right after doing $5 million in 11 months at 22 years old, right? So literally, yes, God, boom, everything is gone. I have the marshal coming in to collect the checks, the cashier's checks from my customers. My bank accounts are levied by the IRS. This all happened right after I said yes to that message. Right? That's a time to walk away, isn't it? And to say this doesn't work. No, I went through some major traumatic things just in that first year alone. But I can say this, that right after I started to learn and I started to open up that book and I started to read, and then I would hear what was being preached. It took me a year before I would walk into a church. And then once I did, man, I felt really confused about what it said in the book and what was being taught and the structure of the entire thing. Meaning, here we have, Abraham, who was a wealthy businessman who God chose to actually build the entire faith on and with. He's the father of all of our faith, if those of us believe in this same God of Israel. So here, Abraham was a businessman, but yet when I would hear him be talked about, he's talked about like in some special robe, he had ordination papers, and he was just full-time ministry. No, he was not. He was not at all in ministry. His life was living for his God. His business was for his God. The way he demonstrated humility and worked with people was all about his God. But there was no church, there was no structure of hierarchy, of positioning on how to get high up and become an elder and all of this kind of stuff. It didn't exist in his day. Then I kept going as I kept reading through. Noah was a drunk. Abraham lied. But here I hear about these people and it's like, oh, they're saints. No, they ain't. They is jacked up just like me. That's what I would read. Like, that guy lied. Hello. He lied and said that his wife was his sister. Twice to 2 kings. He let his wife be taken by another man. Not once, but twice. I'd be like, that's a jerk. Let's be real. But we hear this perfect, sinless person being talked about. There ain't nothing about sinless about that. And then what a fool. He can't have a kid with his wife. His wife says, hey, I think it's a good idea. Take this 20-year-old, sleep with her, we'll have a child by her. And she somehow thinks that there's not gonna be any jealousy problems. She didn't think this one through. She didn't think through, what if she actually gets pregnant? Now we know who the problem is. She didn't think about that. She didn't think about hearing some moans in some tent from some young chick and her old husband having a good old time with a young chick. That didn't turn out so well. So I'm looking at all the drama in this book, and I'm like, how come this stuff ain't talked about? Give me the guts Because I can identify with the mess, I can't identify with the sinless. Is there anybody here that's the same way? I can identify with the mess, I cannot identify with the sinless. I can identify with the failures, I cannot identify with the perfect. Cannot. So as I'm reading this thing myself, I get to Daniel. Daniel actually worked for a wicked king, and he managed people who practice witchcraft. If he lived in today, in our churches today, he'd be told he was a sinner and he needs to do the Lord's work. He should quit his job and come work full time for the church and go broke and have skinny kids and supplement through welfare and an EBT card. The teachers are told that they should work for a Christian school. Yeah, the kids that are spoon-fed that stuff all day long and then not seeing the demonstration of it. And let's go ahead and let the kids that are in the world not see love. So all of these constructs of our modern life has created its own little team or something. Its own little brand that doesn't quite fit in the book. The book and the current brand are like, woo, passing in the night. Very, very different. So as I read this, I was like, dang, man, gosh. You know, I thought that I would never be good enough, pure enough, holy enough, righteous enough to be able to talk about God. I thought I would never have the opportunity to tell the truth about my faith because I was so filthy. And then guess what the Bible is filled with? Filthy people. Filthy. So I began to go, wait! Abraham was a businessman. He lied. I've lied, and I'm a businesswoman. And I'm making a lot of money. Isaac. Oh, wait. Didn't he do the same thing? Yes. He also was wealthy. They had a family business that did very, very well. They were very influential in their community. They grew, whatever their hands touched, they prospered. They used these principles to make a lot of money. Making a lot of money wasn't evil. But I go to church and I hear that it is. Hold the phone. I get to Daniel. Daniel doesn't work in full-time ministry, but God used him to bring not one, but two, but three kings to confessing that Yahweh, the creator of the heavens and the earth, was the one true God. He's a political advisor. Where are the believers in the one true God who are supposed to be political advisors today? They're volunteering somewhere when they should be at the White House, where they should be the school principals and teachers, where they should be the heads of engineering firms, where they should be the actors in Hollywood, where they should be the directors of film, where they should be the head of the liberal arts, where they should be the head of the largest corporations in the world, but instead, they're working for the Lord. Broke with no influence. Because of this new construct, this modern construct. But if you read through the Bible, you see that messed up people is who he worked with and through in everyday life and in everyday professions. That he worked in the marketplace with everyday people who were messed up in everyday life positions. Farmers, sheep herders, tent makers, saddle makers. People who had businesses, people who worked for someone else that had a business. That's who he worked with and that's who he worked through. Versus this structure. If you really want to be special and you're committed to God, then you're going to go to seminary and become a minister. And when you go to seminary, you actually don't even read the Bible cover to cover, but you're going to read what other people say about the Bible, and then you're going to get out and you're going to have to raise some money by having some projects and some programs so that your kids can eat. You don't find that structure in this book. But what you find is an amazing, loving God. What you find is a God who sent his son to bring healing to the world. And that message has not stopped for 2,000 years. Isn't that amazing? 2,000 years. This message can't be shut down or shut up. In countries where it's not allowed, it's still being talked about. In places where those who believe in that book are being martyred, that is still being talked about. The message can't be shut down no matter what somebody tries to do. No matter what country leader tries to shut it off or down, don't matter. It's still, the message is getting through. The message of what? His love. His love. His love that endures forever. So now that I got that out of the way, we're going to pretend like we're in my house, and I'm going to pray, because that's what I do. Father, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your love. And I say again to you, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for your rest and your peace. Thank you, Father, for your truth. And I pray right now for every household that can hear my voice, that God, your truth is the one that comes through. Father, I pray that I am not a distraction in any way to anybody hearing your love, hearing your truth, hearing your plan. Father, I pray that your words go deep inside of every single one of us, and that it shakes us, it moves us, it directs us. Father, I pray that your voice, as we head into this new decade, is the primary voice that we long to hear. Not the voice of anybody else, but that we long to hear from your voice being the voice that leads us into wildernesses and out of wildernesses. Your voice that leads us into deserts and out of deserts. Father, that your voice is the one that leads us in through the storm and out of the storm. Father, I pray that your voice is the one that leads us into our careers, in relationships, that we hear by way of your Holy Spirit, and we are directed only by that we commit our ways, all of our ways, to following you, your truth, your ways, not the construct of our modern religion, but Father, just you, naked truth, that we choose to cling to the nakedness of your truth, the holiness of your truth, versus the truth that has been perverted in every way, shape, and form. God, we say we love you tonight. Open our ears, our eyes, open our hearts. Father, cleanse and purify us. Prepare us for this next season that we're about to walk in. And Father, I pray that you bless the message and that your voice is the voice that will be heard, and any part of my voice that's involved with any of this, that just is unheard, that it just doesn't fall on any ears, it just falls away. I also take authority over this room. And Father, I bind the spirit of offense. Father, I also bind the gossiper. Any gossiper, Father, with hatred and malice inside of their hearts, Father, I pray that you deal with them right where they're at. Deal with their very heart, Father. Convict their very heart and raise them up to be one that is truly walking in honesty and holiness with you. Father, I also speak against the accuser of the brethren that speaks through people, and some of which that are watching right this minute, or those that might be in this room for the distinct purpose to prove something that is not there and that is not true. Father, I pray that every single accuser, every accusation will be torn down. Every single person that is even accusing anyone in this room, every false testimony giver that is being happening against anyone in this room, Father, I pray you tear that down and you bring conviction amongst those who are deceivers and bringing lies, Father. And I pray that you bring their heart to the place where they fully surrender to you in every way, and that they can walk in true freedom instead of hurt, instead of the wounds from their past. Yeah. God, we love you, we love you, we love you, and we pray that you be the one to direct us tonight. And I speak blessing over every person here, including anybody who is wobbling and teetering and maybe isn't here for the right reasons, and even listening to this right now for not the right reasons. Father, change the heart. Change the heart. Let the messaging change the heart of every one of us that needs a heart change tonight. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, in the name of Jesus the Messiah, amen. Okay. All right. So, guess what is going to happen in the next decade? Let me say this. I want you to write down 3 things over the last decade that happened that were a blessing to you. 3 things that happened in the last decade that were a blessing to you. At the close of this Gregorian calendar year that we all are a part of and that we live under, Chad, can you give me 40? What leads into this calendar year is a biblical holiday called the Feast of Dedication, also known as Hanukkah. And during this past Hanukkah, which I keep all of the biblical holidays, why? I love them. I enjoy them. It's not for me to earn some kind of righteous position anywhere. It's not to impress somebody. I read them and I went, this could be a good idea. It says to do this. It says to do it for all generations. It says how to do it. How come the church isn't doing it? So I decided to do it. And I found it to be insanely helpful. I found it to be incredibly enriching. And I also found it to get me back on track. Is anybody here, do you struggle with getting off track? You and I are in the same boat, right? So I struggle just as much as anybody else with finding the wrong track to get myself on and then, whoops, get back over here. Hello, sister, come back. So anyway, Hanukkah. So what I did this past Hanukkah is I wrote down 8 miracles every day. 8 miracles that I have experienced in my life every day. So I ended up in 8 days with 64 miracles. This was really important to lead me into this fresh new calendar year. So I want you to write down 3 things just in the last decade that were a blessing to you. Something that maybe could have came out of nowhere or could have been something that you worked hard for and you got to see the fruit from it. 3 things. After you're done with that, write down 3 things that were really, really hard. Could have been something traumatic, might have been a divorce, might have been cancer, a heart attack, you might have lost a loved one. I want you to write down 3 things that were really, really hard. And if you're watching right now, do the same thing. Don't just sit. Please don't open your phone and go text somebody. This is not time to click a Google ad. This is time to write. Don't be stupid. Most of the room is still writing, so if you're already done, keep going. Add number 4 to both sides. You don't have to write out the whole story, just can do a bullet point. You know what happened. Later, it might be good to write the story. It's very healing to journal these kind of things. It really is. Okay, so what did you learn with writing down 3 things that were a blessing to you in the last decade? Yes.
One thing was both
One thing for her was a blessing and really hard. There was one thing that was on both, which actually means you learned from the hard thing. That's what happened. Beauty came from ashes. Yeah, beauty came from ashes, okay? What else did you learn? Did you have some good things happen in the last decade? How many of you had some good things happen in the last decade? If we don't recognize those good things, we can get ourselves in a tunnel of pitifulness. I'm serious, if all we see is what's still hard, what's still unfixed, what still is happening, we can get ourselves in a pitiful pit, really. How many of you had some hard things that you went through? You found 3 things, right? How many of you are not there anymore? You're not in those things anymore, which means what? You were able to move to the other side. Now, I saw some hands go like this. Maybe you're still in the midst of some of it, but are you in the same pain of it? Or has it gotten easier? You understand? So you're moving through the storm. You're not pitching a tent and living in hell, right? But you're moving yourself ahead. You're not staying the same. So this is what humans do. We do advance ourselves. Do you understand? We will move ahead. Even when we feel stuck, we're actually moving ahead. Where's all my stuck people? How many of you felt stuck before you got here? Okay? Well, guess what? Your hand is up because you feel like you're stuck. You're not being able to move through. But do you know what you did? You came here. Why did you come here? To get unstuck, which means you're doing what? You're moving, which means you're not as stuck as you thought you were. Do you understand? You're not as stuck as you thought you were. You're actually moving in the right direction. By even making the investment that you came, you've been taking notes all day, you're taking notes tonight, you're looking for the solutions, you're working on yourself, which means you're moving out of the current situation that you're in and moving toward a better scenario. How many of you know that that is what you're doing? Give yourselves a hand. Good job. You can't stay the same sitting in something like this for 3 days. You just cannot. You cannot stay the same sitting in something like this for 3 days. No matter what, something's going to change. If anything, I know you got something out of today that had to do with feelings. Okay. People who are watching have no idea what we're laughing about. Okay, so what we do know is that this next decade is going to bring 2 things. What's it going to bring? Based on what you just wrote down, what is it going to bring this next decade? It's going to bring blessings, and it's going to bring what? Hard times. And sometimes it's the hard time, which is where the blessing is. The blessing usually is buried in the storm. The treasure is not out in the open, easy for everyone to find. The treasures in our life usually come out of the traumas of our life. And if you look at it, it's true. I was a homeless woman 29 years ago. This next December, a year from now, roughly, it'll be 30 flipping years. My gosh. Am I still there? What happened from being homeless? This crazy life. This crazy, ridiculous, doesn't make any sense life. What came out of it? I made $250,000 that next year after being homeless. I made my first $1 million the next year after being homeless. I then got embezzled. Why? I didn't know what I was doing financially. All I knew how to do was make money. I had no idea how to keep it. I didn't know that I was supposed to watch it. I didn't know that I was supposed to hold a bookkeeper accountable. I didn't know I was supposed to pay taxes. I didn't know that I shouldn't just trust somebody to take care of that for me. But that's when you're 22 and 23 and you're dumb. Guess what? I ain't dumb anymore. Not like that anyway. I'm dumb in other things, but no, not that dumb in that direction. I know this. Pay your taxes. Don't try to cheat. Just give Caesar what Caesar is due. No less, no more. Give it. Don't try to cheat the system, bend the system, find a different loophole for the system, just pay it. How many of you hate paying taxes? But I remember the day that I had to write a check for $1.8 million to the IRS, knowing they weren't going to do nothing with that money. Nothing. I remember Hans and I just looking at each other, shaking our heads like, I said, hey, at least we get to write a check that size. Right? At least you get to write a check that size. Like, that's pretty cool. Not everyone gets to write a check that size. Right? Huh? Yeah, I know, shut up. It makes me so mad when I think about what the government does with those taxes. It just makes me so mad, so mad. We could be doing so much good for the poor. We could be doing so much good for the widow. We could be doing so much for the sick. But they don't know how to manage their money. I know of a class they should take called War on Debt. That'd be a good place for them all to start, but they're just not there yet. Anyway, so what we do know is there's going to be storms, and out of the storms, beautiful things are going to come out of it. Beautiful character can come out of it. People that you would have never met had you didn't go through that circumstance. Places you would have never gone had you did not get caught up in the hurricane. Beautiful things of character that can come out of us if we choose to manage it correctly. So, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that what's going to happen in the next 10 years is there's going to be some storms. There's going to be some traumas. And I'm not going to go into this decade blind and stupid, as I have in other decades, chasing a full-on fantasy of thinking everything's going to be rainbows and cherries and whipped cream with some chocolate. And then when it wasn't like that, I have a tendency, I'm a passionate person. So what's going to be my response as a passionate person? Okay, that's going to be my response as a passionate person. I'm going to have a passionate response. Is there anybody in here that's passionate? Okay, cool. So does anyone have a freak out button? Okay, cool. So I don't want to set myself up for the freak out. I want to rule my own spirit and be able to, in a much more mature fashion, be able to move through some crazy, scary, nasty stuff. Now, I'm not saying I freak out all the time because I don't. I really don't. I used to freak out a whole lot more than I freak out now. So I know I'm getting better. I don't want to kill the TSA agent when I go through the airport anymore. I used to want to. I used to want to hang my little Christian self up on a hook for just 10 minutes. Don't you touch me there. I was mean for like 10 years to TSA people. You know, they say, we have to do a pat down. Mm-hmm. Is there any parts that are more sensitive? Yeah. You can't even imagine the things that I've said. Yeah, starts with a V. It's very sensitive. Good old sweet Christian girl. Starts with a V. That area is very sensitive. Or I would say this, I'm a former rape victim, and I was also molested from the time I was 3 till I was 16, so it is very painful for another stranger to touch my body. That's how I started. Is there any areas that are sensitive? Yes, I'm a former rape victim. And I was molested from the time I was 3 to 16. So it's very painful for a stranger to touch my body, looking them dead in the eyes. You could go through the scanner. I know I could. But after talking to so many TSA agents and seeing how many of them got cancer and had miscarriages and really bad health, I decided it wouldn't be a good idea. I actually smiled, looked them right in the eyes, and said it. I was not very nice, nor was I representing our brand very well. But I don't do that anymore. I'm nice now. Really. So I don't go through the scanner. No way. I opt out every time. And I'm also TSA pre-check. But I get the random selection often. I think it's God. He's just going, dink. Okay, honey, you can do it. You can do it. I believe in you, baby. Come on, show the love, show the love. Self-control, self-control. Come on, baby, you can do it. And I can. I've been able to do it for like 5 years. This is a big win. Big, huge. Like I was not nice. I would say I don't know what I will do if you touch an area of my body where I have a traumatic memory. So I'm apologizing in advance because it triggers me. I don't do that anymore. Isn't that great? I've almost been handcuffed at the airport before. I have. I've almost been handcuffed. Anybody else in here almost been handcuffed at the airport? Awesome. Just a couple, really? The same thing. Yeah. So I don't do that anymore, and I'm really happy that I'm proud of myself that I don't do it anymore. How many of you have some things that you've moved ahead in your character, you've gotten better in some areas? Okay, awesome. Proud of you. That's good. All right, so I know that what's ahead of me is some really great opportunities, and there's gonna be some scary things that are gonna happen. This time, my eyes are wide open, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm going to shield myself with something that's gonna help to prepare me for what is to come. That doesn't mean I have the expectation that everything's gonna be bad. It means that I know that the weather is going to change. And I'm gonna be prepared to have the right tools or umbrella, clothes, whatever it is that I need to handle the changes in the weather instead of reacting to the changes of the weather. So here's where I want to take us, Ephesians chapter 6. So if you are not familiar with this book and you stole one from Gideon, which was a gift, so it means you didn't steal, it's kind of at the very back of the book, almost towards the very, very back of the book, okay? And you're listening to a girl like who did not know anything about this book, all right? And how I've learned about this book is because I just decided to study the book, all right? And so in a healthy, digesting, consistent, like daily basis, I now kind of know where things are a little bit. I'm certainly not an expert on anything that I'm about to talk to you about. But I'm just telling you what is in my personal journal as to what will be leading and guiding me into this next decade, okay? So let's just start with verse 1, real simple. Children, can I see every child in the house to please raise your hands? Good job. Obey your parents in the master, for this is right. I'm reading from a version, it's my favorite one, called Scriptures. It's by the Institute of Scripture Research. They kept all the Hebrew names in the Bible in Hebrew. They didn't turn them into English names, which I love. They also kept God's name in here, which I love. So that's the version I'm reading from. I recommend that you get one. It's really awesome. So children, obey your parents in the master, for this is right. Okay? Awesome. Respect your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, in order that it might be well with you and you might live long on the earth. I love that passage. When our daughter Erica had a double aneurysm at the age of 16, this was the kid who never did anything wrong in this mother's opinion. She was the easiest one to raise until her brother Micah. They are both the easiest ones to raise. It's not that one was easier than the other. They both were very similar in their disposition. They were very compliant children and loved to honor, loved to follow direction, loved to please, had a very healthy understanding of what was right and what was wrong, wasn't one to challenge those kind of things, at least in front of you. Did some challenging, as every child should and does, because they're human, maybe in some other places, but she would always get caught, which was really awesome. And I would pray that kind of thing. Like, I would pray, like, God, if any one of them are heading in the direction they shouldn't be, Father, let them get them caught fast. So I would have dreams. I literally would have dreams. I think she's here in the room. I had a dream one time. And she was about, 15 or so like that. And the rule was you don't date till you're 16. You don't even think about it. And at that point, somebody has to come and ask your father, and he has to work out with your father in order to take you anywhere. And the first date is not only going to have him work out with your dad, which her dad is a boxer. And he's a martial artist. So my husband would, gives a nice little roundhouse. Oh, how you doing there? Just want to make sure you know how to protect my daughter. And every date would have a brother or two as the chaperones. Her little brothers would have to go on the date with her, right? These are the rules. So if anyone has the cojones to withstand this idea, then he can take you out, right? That was it. So I had a dream. And I had a dream that there was a boy that was pursuing her and kissed her. And I woke up, like the dream woke me up, and I went upstairs as she's getting ready to school. I said, Erica, I just had the craziest dream. And I told her, she goes, Mom, I have to talk to you. she takes me in. So I told my kids, I said, listen, I said, it's always best to be honest and truthful. You don't get in trouble for telling the truth. I don't care what it was that you did. But if you lie, that is unacceptable, and that is something that we do not tolerate. There will be circumstances and there will be discipline for lying. However, if you confess and you walk away from what you're doing, totally different story. We honor that. There's going to be mercy for that and grace for those kind of actions. So anyway, poop. There was a reason why I was telling you this. Dreams. So I tell my kids, if you lie, there's a good chance that I'm going to have a dream. I do hear his voice. And I do pray that you get caught quickly. So it's better for you not to get caught. It's better for you to confess. And that's how they were raised, right? Personal responsibility. You mess up, fess up. And we'll deal with the consequences after the fessing up, right? There's less consequences if you fess up. There's far more if we find out later, right? Okay, so we believe in teaching your kids how to honor their father and mother. So here Erica is 16 years old. She has a double aneurysm. This is the kid that really never did anything wrong. Like, she was the easiest person. She was awesome. She was honorable. She loved church. She loved to dance before God. She loved her God. She was a praying kid. She was the kid that when I gave my life back to God, she was a baby. I'd bring her into the toilet room with me, 5:30 in the morning when she'd wake up, and she would pray with me. A little baby on the floor. She's going around this little, not even 2 feet amount of space as I'm praying. She learned to pray early. She loved God. She had a healthy desire to please him, and she has a double aneurysm. Not a rebellious kid, but a good kid. Has this terrible traumatic thing that actually happens to her. And I remember when she was in ICU fighting for her life, and this was the scariest, most horrible experience that our family had ever experienced up to that time. Watching your kids suffer in ICU, especially that kid, right? That kid. Nothing in life prepares you to walk through something like that. But one of the things that I reminded her of was this one right here in Ephesians. And her and I would pray together. And this is what we would say. As she's puking her guts out, she's in excruciating pain, and they're trying to figure out how to fix this bleed that she had inside of her brain. Erica, you have honored your father and mother. You will have a long life. You don't need to be afraid of this because you have honored your father and mother all your life. So either he is a liar or you're going to live. And that's what we pray. God, she has honored you. Honor your word. Honor your promise. She's chosen you. She's walked rightly before you. Give the promise of the long life. And that right there, that passage, brought us through that experience, as well as other things. But knowing that she honored her father and mother, she clung to the fact that healing was on its way. And guess what came? Healing. She got healed of the brain damage that happened because of the aneurysm. Her legs weren't operating correctly for a couple of weeks after. God completely healed, and he completely restored her, and her brain is perfectly normal today. She's a mom of 2 herself. A complete miracle. She's lived 11 years past what she could have lived. And a promise is what we held on to. So what promises are you going to hold on to? What promises will you hold on to? So the last few years, I've made it a point to put this one into practice. I want to make sure that I'm going to sow good seed. And as I'm walking through these storms, I want this one in my back pocket. Do you understand? I want this one in my back pocket. God, I've honored my mother, my stepfather, and my father. Thank you for who you sent to be my parents. I've thanked them over and over again. I encourage my mother, even though she's still a drug addict. I still encourage her and tell her that I believe in her. I don't treat her different than I treat somebody else that's not a drug addict. I still will say to my mom, thank you for the choices that you made. Thank you for how you helped us. Thank you for how you fought for your life. Thank you for how you fought for the miracle of going paralyzed from the neck down to then walking again. Thank you for demonstrating that kind of persistence and that kind of faith. Pointing out what was right, because you know what? We as children that are now adults and have parents, we have a tendency of picking apart our parents and pointing out everything they did wrong. But yet, you were their first go-around, dude. They didn't know what they were doing, just like you don't know what you're doing. They were trying to figure it out while they were still kids. They did their very best. They had their own past that they brought into the mix. So I want to choose to see the gifts that Dan gave me. The man that molested me, guess what he taught me? Diligence and hard work. The guy who never had a job. How did he teach it to me? And how I cleaned a toilet. How I dusted the furniture. There was no going around a picture. You take everything off the table and you dust that entire table. And then you dust everything before you put it back on the table. Diligence, excellence. Where would I be today if he had not taught me those things? I would not be where I'm standing right now if it wasn't for what Dan taught me. Dan also gave me the opportunity to forgive, didn't he? Because of that pain of being molested, I had to make a choice. And because of that is where I learned the power of forgiveness. If I hadn't learned the power of forgiveness, I would be dead right now. So because of that horrible trauma, I gained out of that strength. I gained out of that freedom. I gained out of that love, compassion, and kindness. So what a gift it is that he gave me, that his failures in his life taught me and gave me an opportunity to do something different, to pick a different road. Your parents, whoever it is that raised you, some of you, how many of you had a great childhood? How much have you thanked your parents? Do they need to hear that they were good parents? Have you told them that they're good parents? They need to hear that. How many of you had an okay childhood? Have you told your parents they were good parents? Have you thanked them for everything they sacrificed to help you with? How many of you had a rough childhood? Have you thanked your parents? Have you told them how grateful you are for the things that they did for you? They had to listen, if you had a traumatic childhood, your parents had to push through a lot of crap to keep you alive. You're lucky they didn't kill you. How many of you know that's true? How many of you were not an easy child? How many of you challenged the heck out of your parents? Have you said sorry? Many, many times. All right, so let's keep going. So honoring your parents, there's a promise that goes with that. I want to cling to that. And you, fathers, do not provoke your children, but bring them up in the instruction and the admonition of the master. Which means don't be over capacity, Dad. Don't exasperate your kid. If your kid is 4, deal with them at that level. Don't expect for them to not screw up. Expect for them to be learning and be gracious and compassionate when they're doing that. Here's the next one. Servants, obey your masters. Let me change the word. Employees, obey your managers. This one's really important. Obey your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in sincerity of heart as to the Messiah. Not with eye service as men pleasers, but as servants of Messiah, doing the desire of Elohim, which means God in Hebrew, from the inner self. Okay, what does that mean? Do you realize that if you're a believer in the God of Israel, that you're a part of a different team? Do you realize that you're a part of a totally different team? And so what they're saying there, it's really clear. Employees, honor your managers, honor the owners of the business, not to please man, but to represent the team that you come from. You come from a different team. You come from a team where Jesus is the head coach, but the Father in heaven is the one leading and owning and directing even him. So wear the jersey and wear it well. Don't be there to please man for the sake of pleasing man, but be there to represent the team you're a part of well. So everything that we talked about today with honor, that's about wearing the jersey that you should be wearing. Do you understand? And when you fall over to the wrong side, to dishonor, then we have to do the right thing wearing the jersey, which is saying, please forgive me, I'm really sorry, I totally screwed that up. How many of you can say that? How many of you don't feel like saying it? This is when you tell your feelings to shut up and go to hell. Because their feelings are leading you to hell in that point. You realize that, right? So this is when you have to disassociate from that feeling that says, no, I don't want to apologize. How many of you have a hard time apologizing? Wave at me, all the hard time apologizers. How many of you have a really hard time admitting wrong? Okay, do you realize those feelings of stubbornness lead you to destruction? That's where they lead you. So this is where you tell those feelings of stubbornness to shut up and go back to hell because you don't have a need for those. Let's keep going. Number 7, rendering service with pleasure. Let's say this together. I'd be glad to. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to serve. It's my pleasure to get that for you. I'd be glad to do that task. Why? Because you're representing what? You're representing that team. You're representing the King of the universe's team. That's what you're representing. So I'd be glad to. It would be my pleasure. Let's practice it together. It would be my pleasure. I'd be glad to. But Dani, what if I wouldn't be glad to? That's when you tell your feelings to shut up and go to hell. Because the attitude of, but I don't want to do it, is what? Rebellion. Where does rebellion lead? To destruction. Where does it lead in your job? Fired. That's where it leads in your job. It leads to getting fired. It leads to not getting promoted. So does it make sense to tell the feelings of rebellion to shut up and go to hell where it belongs? Show does. Let's practice right now. It's real simple. Rebellion, shut up and go to hell. Stubbornness, shut up and go to hell. I have no use for you. Can you do that? Yes. Next. These 51-year-old eyes are amazing. I'm going to find it right there. Okay, watch. So to verse 7, rendering service with pleasure, as to the master and not to men. When you give service with pleasure, I'd be glad to. You're actually not serving the man, but you're serving the king. Makes it much easier. The one who actually sees everything you do and will promote you. Verse 8, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he shall receive the same from the master, whether he is slave or free. Verse 9, and masters, do the same to them. Oh. So managers, employers, business owners, you are supposed to serve them with pleasure. I'd be glad to. It would be my pleasure. But they don't deserve it. Anyone ever feel that before? And masters, do the same to them. Refrain from threatening, knowing that your master also is in heaven and there is no partiality with him. You threaten your staff, you shame your staff, you manipulate them. Guess what, dude? This is what's coming back to you. Verse 10, for the rest, my brothers, be strong in the master and in the mightiness of his strength, not your strength. I don't want to go into the next decade with my strength. I'm weak suck. I am. I'm full-on weak suck. Sometimes I'm weaker than others. But straight up, weak. Tempted. Have wickedness inside of me. Sometimes want to rebel. Sometimes want to say forget it. Sometimes want to quit. Sometimes want to run. Sometimes want to hide. Sometimes want to give in. Sometimes I want to scream. Sometimes I want to fight. Sometimes I want to cry. Anybody else here have some of those sometimes? So if I don't have my focus in the right direction, I'm not heading to the right place. So for the rest of my brothers, be strong in the Master and in the mightiness of his strength. So here's what I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. These right here are peripheral focuses for me. This is peripheral, on the outskirts. But this next section is what it is. Let's go. Leading me straight in to this next decade. Next verse. Put on the complete armor of Elohim. For you have power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers, against darkness of this age, and against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all, to stand. Do any of you realize that we are in the wicked days? If you've read this book cover to cover, you would know that we are in wicked days. We're in the days where good is called evil and evil is called good. Those are the days we live in right now. We're living in complete lawlessness right now. Justice is not happening at the rate or the way it should be happening. Lines are grayed. Mouths are muted. We as a people are distracted and disconnected. We're disengaged with our God. We're disengaged even with our families. There is a profession that I believe is going to rise really high in the next decade, and that is the profession of counselors and therapists. I believe that in the next decade, there's going to be chains, franchises of those professions. Big offices filled with therapist after therapist, counselor after counselor. It'll almost be like a drive-through. There'll be so many of them, and why? Because of the lawlessness that has happened and how we as a people who say we wear this jersey have not held up the standard in our country. We haven't held the standard up in our families. We haven't held the standard up in our businesses. There's so much confusion in the land. How many of you would agree with that? There's so much confusion. People don't know up from down, right from left. There's new definitions being given to things that have been the same for thousands of years. The foundation of our nation is changing, being deconstructed, remodified. There's tons of uncertainty in the marketplace today because there's a lot of uncertainty in every human out there today. We don't know which way to go. And here we thought this was right, but yet popular opinion says it's not. So I believe there's going to be more confusion in this next decade, more than ever. I believe we're going to see pillars of strength coming down, things that we put our faith in that are going to be coming down. And therefore, we need to know the truth. We need to cling to the truth. We need to cling to that which is immovable instead of everything else that's moving and shaking all around us. We need clear vision in 2020. We need clear vision in 2020. You're not going to get that clear vision by watching TV or watching some shows on your phone. If there isn't a time of investment of this, to be alert, to be aware, and to daily put on this armor, and get an understanding of what this armor is for you to lead you into what this next decade brings. Please don't hear this as all bad news. What comes out of tragedy? Blessing. Blessing comes out of tragedy. But if you don't have the eyes to see it, you'll be overcome by the tragedy. If you don't have the eyes to know that he's moving on your behalf, and if you don't have the ears to understand and hear his voice and know his truth, guess what? You'll be overcome. So this is where learning to stand and to stand firm, knowing who you are and whom you belong to, is really important for this next decade. And this is my personal truth for me coming into this next decade. So let's keep going. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all, to stand. Verse 14, stand them, having girded your waist with truth. Stop right there. The belt of truth, your waist of truth, right in the middle of your body, right at the core of your being, right at the center of where you're at. What is your belt of truth? Do you have one? What is your belt of truth? I'm not talking about a universal belt of truth. We all have a belt of truth. What's yours? Do you know he's real? Why? What's your belt of truth? How do you know? Huh? We're not talking about faith. Talking about your belt of truth. Yes. Your own personal experiences that you have had with him. Your own personal experiences of him bailing you out of some place or somewhere. Your own personal experiences that what that book says you have personally experienced in your life. So what is your belt of truth? Earlier I told you that during Hanukkah, I wrote down 8 miracles for each day of Hanukkah. 8 miracles, 64 separate miracles. Guess what those 64 separate miracles are? My belt of truth. Those are my belt of truth. That's the word of my testimony, that I was paralyzed from the waist down. I am no longer. He healed me right in my house, in front of my children and some of my closest friends, from being completely paralyzed and not being able to take care of my body to being able to squat and walk upstairs and say no more. Being completely healed, could feel nothing. I was being poked in my feet. I could feel nothing. They were putting needles in the bottom of my feet to see if I could feel. I could feel nothing. The night I got healed, the doctor who was living with us touched my foot and I jumped. Okay? So that is part of my belt of truth. Now, how many of you, there are some people here in this room that were with us during that time. And remember when Hans did first steps and the spiritual equipping and hadn't got a phone call from me that I had been healed. That is also your belt of truth if you went through that experience. My girlfriend Michelle, who was here, who washed my hair twice a week because I couldn't wash my hair. So she'd come to my house and wash my hair. Saw me naked in a shower, taking care of me, sees me now. I'm part of her belt of truth. So what's your belt of truth? Well, Dani, I don't have any miracles that have happened. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Have you acknowledged them? Have you forgotten about them? Did you forget that he rescued you out of a pit? Did you forget that his love rescued you in the midst of your wickedness, and that no matter how many times you failed him, he still welcomed you back. That's a belt of truth. That no matter how far away you go off on the wrong track, his love always woos you back to him. That's your belt of truth. That he helped to carry you through some really bad stuff. How many of you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he has carried you through some really hard stuff? That is your belt of truth. That lines up with what that book says. That's his promise of what he will do. And you have witnessed it and experienced it yourself. What else? Have you experienced his comfort during times of mourning and grieving? How many of you have experienced a supernatural comfort during a time of grieving and mourning? That's part of your what? Belt of truth. He says that he is the ever-present help in time of need. That's what the truth says. You've experienced the truth. How many of you have had peace in a crazy storm where you should have absolutely no peace? How many of you have experienced his peace before? That is what? Your belt of truth. But see, I can ask you the question, what's your belt of truth? And you're like, it's a big black hole between these 2 years. At least it is for me. Unless I put a focus and a determination on, show me, Father. Show me the places and the things that you've done, even the things that I did not know that you did, or the things I've even forgotten. God forbid that I have forgotten. Because if we don't recognize this belt of truth, we can lead ourselves into places of hopelessness. We can. And I have been in places of hopelessness several times in my life. And a belt of truth has carried me through those dark, dark days where I just want to quit, and I'm asking him to take my life. Or I'm asking him, please let me die. As I get into my car and I say, please let it be catastrophic. That if I am going to have an encounter with another vehicle, if this plane is going to crash, please do not let me survive. I do not want to survive a car crash or an airplane crash. Please take my life. Why? I'm allergic to all pain medication. That's why. Let it be catastrophic. A fear that entered in, that I've had to fight, by the way. For 11 years, I've been fighting the fear of the future. What's in my future? Same thing that's in yours, getting old. Both my parents have had knee replacements, my biological parents, knee replacements. I cannot have a knee replacement. Do you hear me? Cannot. Why? I'm allergic to all pain medication. And I know the pain that both my parents suffered through. I was the one that took care of my dad when he had knee surgery, lived with us for 4 months. I know the pain. Thank God for modern medicine, and thank God for the pain that he didn't have to suffer through as much that if he had nothing for pain. So when I see that, I want to say all kinds of colorful words. God, please. I can't have hip replacements. No surgeries. Like, this is just not a good idea. I have 3 days where Benadryl works. After that, over. Guess what? Knee surgery, hip surgery, all those surgeries, oh, you are on pain medication for quite a while. Because it hurts bad. So my belt of truth has to take me in there, God. You have to rescue me from any of that. I have no choice but to trust and to believe. Otherwise, I just want to die because that future looks really scary. Really, really scary. Weed makes me want to puke. Fentanyl makes me puke. Morphine makes me scratch to blood through the night, sleeping. Tormented. So what's your belt of truth? Because if you don't have a belt of truth, you are not going to withstand the days that are ahead. Because there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And there's going to be bad months ahead of us. And there's going to be good months ahead of us. What is your belt of truth? How many of you remember the day that you heard the salvation story and you said yes? And how many of you felt a change inside of you? That is your belt of truth. And if we're not careful, we forget about those things. And it's so far removed from us that when we head into battle, we don't even have the armor on. We're just going to get slaughtered out there. I don't want to step on a battlefield without fully armed with what I need. And one of the things I must have is a belt of truth. What's next in there? Who has it? You have it pulled up. You can read it. The breastplate of righteousness. So the breastplate of righteousness, I want to go through a bunch of things here. The breastplate of righteousness, right? Which shields the very core of what helps you to stay alive, right? That's what helps to protect what keeps you alive. So what is your breastplate of righteousness? What is yours? How is that personal to you? How many of you don't know? I mean, it'd be a good idea to know, right? So I want to tell you what I wrote down. I went in and I just started looking up every place where the word righteousness existed. And here's what I wrote. I believe that Yahweh is the creator of the heavens and the earth, just like Abraham believed. And Abraham's faith was attributed to him as righteousness. That's my righteousness. As it was attributed to Abraham, it is also attributed to me. And if you believe that Yahweh is the creator of the heavens and the earth, by the way, that's his name. It's a Hebrew name, and it's in the original text. The Greek people took it out and just called it God. But he actually has a name. So if you believe that he's the creator of the heavens and the earth, that is attributed to you as righteousness. So that's your breastplate of righteousness, part of it. Taking care of the poor, the Bible calls righteous. How many of you consistently care for the poor in one way or another? Whether you're directing 10% of your income towards taking care of the poor, that could be the trafficked, that could be the homeless, the orphan, that you're consistent, 10% straight off the top going to the poor, that is your breastplate of righteousness. Proverbs 15:29 says, Yahweh is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. Did you hear me? Yahweh is far away from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. Who here believes in the creator of the heavens and the earth? What is that attributed to you as? Righteousness. So whose prayers does he hear? Yours. Do you hear me? He hears your prayers. Because you believe in him, your breastplate of righteousness in the midst of a battle that you're walking through says, hold it. I believe like Abraham believed. I'm taking care of the poor. That means you hear me. Help! Proverbs 18:10. The name of Yahweh is a strong tower. The righteous run to him and are safe. Hold on. What's your breastplate of righteousness? Do you believe in the creator of the heavens and the earth? Come on, I can't hear you. Yes. Is it attributed to you as righteousness? Yes. How many of you take care of the poor? Is that attributed to you as righteousness? It says the righteous take care of the poor. So where are we? You take care of the poor, you are righteous. He hears the prayer of the righteous. What's your breastplate of righteousness? I can call out to him. And, wait a second, the righteous run to him and are safe. So in the midst of the battle, what are you? Safe. In the midst of the battle, you are what? Safe. That's your breastplate of righteousness. Proverbs 24:16, a righteous man falls 7 times and rises up. A righteous man falls 7 times and rises up. But the wicked are overthrown to calamity. So wait, the righteous fall? Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 7 times. The righteous fall. How many of you have fallen? What is your breastplate of righteousness? That you get back up. That you get back up. And that is righteous. Proverbs 25:26-28, like a muddied spring and a polluted well, so is a righteous man who gives way before the wicked. That you give into the pressure of the wickedness, you're muddying yourself up. Stay away. That is your breastplate of righteousness. This is a warning for us to stay away from that conduct and stay what? He is a strong tower, run for him. It's not good to eat too much honey, nor is it honorable to seek your own honor. Like a city that is broken down and without walls is a man whose spirit is without restraint. So your breastplate of righteousness would lean us towards restraint, self-control, restraint, rule your own spirit. Use the will that you have to choose choices and words that are healing and helpful for you versus choosing words that are destructive for you. Proverbs 29:7, the righteous care about justice for the poor. The wicked aren't concerned about knowledge about the poor. 29:27, a dishonest man detests the righteous, and the upright in their ways detest the wicked. So wow, what does that mean? Really clear. A dishonest man detests the righteous. What does that mean? You will be hated. You will be hated. Your breastplate of righteousness says what? I will be hated. But what does the rest of your breastplate of righteousness say? It's all good, man, because I got a strong tower and I'm running towards him. It's all good, man, because I believe like Abraham believed. It's all good, man. I take care of the poor. It's all good. It's all good. Keep talking. It's all good, man, because he hears my prayer. But it says we're going to be hated. How many of you fear people not liking you? Guess what your breastplate of righteousness leads you into? It's all good. It's supposed to happen this way. Did you hear me? It's supposed to happen this way. It's supposed to happen this way. Part of the breastplate of righteousness is people will be envious of you. Envy means, again, is hatred towards someone who is demonstrating how you think you should be. Hatred towards someone who is demonstrating character or activities of what you know you should be. So we are going to have people that don't like us. That's the bottom line. All of us, every last one of us. How many of you aren't good at handling that? If you're hated for something other than righteousness, there could be a problem. But if you're hated because you're doing the right thing, you're doing the right thing. If you're hated for doing the right thing, you're doing the right thing. It comes with the territory for doing the right thing. But if you fear it, that puts you right back up here like muddied spring in a polluted well. So is the righteous man who gives way for the wicked. So if you fear people not liking you, you will stop doing and being righteous, which makes you a polluted well. That's it. What's next? Does that sound like a good breastplate of righteousness? What's next? Yes. So having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. So your feet are shackled with peace. Please tell me what your peace is. He directs my steps. Do you have personal witness that he has directed your steps? How many have personal witness that he has directed your steps? So I want you to think right now of a time, I asked you earlier, how many of you have ever experienced his peace in a time that made no sense? What is that? That is my feet shackled with what peace? He says, peace I give you, peace I leave with you. Friends, if you don't put those shoes on, the peace shoes, you're going to walk into all kinds of doo-doo. There's doo-doo flying everywhere. It's a doo-doo storm. Is there anyone in a doo-doo storm now? This is when you got to make sure and put your doo-doo boots on. They're called peace. I'm not kidding you. I'm a little bit of a freak. I'll admit that. I know I'm a little strange, actually a lot, and it's okay. But I will tell you that I have said, peace be still many times. Many times. Or I've said, peace be still. When there's a doo-doo storm or a doo-doo show, how many of you have ever been in a doo-doo show? Me too. And sometimes you don't realize you're in a doo-doo show. And it's a doo-doo storm. But the doo-doo is flying. Big turds. Here it comes. You gotta put the right shoes on. Because there's a lot of stuff that has landed. You must recall and remind yourself of the places where his peace was on you in the midst of the doo-doo storms. Because there's more doo-doo storms coming, and doo-doo shows, and some doo-doo people that do some doo-doo things. There just is. Doo-doo happens. How many of you know it just daily? Happens daily. But please, just think for a moment. Where have you had his peace come in the midst of the doo-doo show? And you got to remind yourself of that. Have a list of it. Man, draw out a picture of the armor and no, this is what happened at this date and this time during this circumstance. So I know that if I choose to put the doo-doo shoes on, I'm putting these shoes on called peace. And I'm going to choose peace in the midst of the gossip. I'm going to choose peace in the midst of the pain of the lost loved one. I'm going to choose peace. I'm going to shackle my feet with peace, the good news of peace. That's what I'm putting on myself. I know I have to walk in and I have to confront, an elder. I have to confront a bad situation, or I just found out that, maybe that you just found out that your spouse has been like doing some really, really unethical things. This is where you have to choose. I'm putting my peace boots on because I'm about to walk into a doo-doo storm. Versus, what shoes do you normally put on in the midst of a doo-doo show? Come on. How many of you want to fight in the middle of a doo-doo storm? Okay, is that the way to do it? You fight with peace. You fight with peace. Fight with peace. Then you win. What's next? Shield of faith. What is yours? What is your shield of faith? What is on your shield of faith? Do you not know? You should know. Say what? The steadiness of time that you've walked with him. That's your shield of faith. Okay? Yes. Your testimony. Your testimony. What he's done in your life. That is a shield of faith. You're no longer a drug addict. You're no longer a drug user or a pusher. You no longer use your wife as a mule to sell drugs. Shield of faith. Do you understand? I'm no longer as wicked at all as I was. He has changed me. Has he changed you? How many of you have felt and experienced him changing your life? Okay, that's your shield of faith. But friend, if you don't document these things, and those things that I'm talking about line up with this, he said he would do it, here's the proof that he's done it. And if it isn't personalized for you, you're gonna be like knocked over by the doo-doo show. Very easily, tossed by the wind and the storms. Instead of that, the winds, the waves, it's like, no, dude, bam. That when the false testimony is being bore against you, that when the IRS is breathing down your throat, that when your kid decides that he doesn't want to have faith anymore and is going to go in the opposite direction of how he or she were raised, that now you're afraid of, what will people think of me? Listen, God is a perfect father. Even his children rebelled. What do you expect out of yourself? You better expect your kids to be human. Some are going to choose a path that is compliant. Some are going to go in the opposite direction, but they'll be back. They'll come home after the butt is all red from their choices. They'll come back to truth, and they'll come back to what they know. When one of our kids had moved away, I had a picture, and he moved away of everything. He moved away from the foundation in which he was raised on. He moved away from the truth in which he knew and experienced. And he gave way to a totally different life for a very short season. And when that happened, I had a picture on my nightstand with him holding another friend, little boy, a friend of ours, kid. And this kid was always about other little kids and leading by a good example and loving the poor and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, wow! That's interesting. Every night. Picture right by, just the picture, not in a frame. God, bring him home. God, bring him home. God, bring him home. Bring our son home. Guess who's home? Our son. Our son is home. And he's been home. So, my shield of faith, every single time that I've prayed for something and it happened, boom, shield of faith. Every single time I asked for something crazy and I got it, boom, shield of faith. What do you have on your shield of faith that makes you immovable under the what? The attacks of all the doo-doo storms that will happen. How many of you too often go like this? When the doo-doo is flying? Liars. You know, lying is a sin. Do you understand? But that shield of faith, man, there's nothing more encouraging than going, wait a minute, boom. In 1990, he spoke to me and said, pick up your mat and walk. Boom. Nothing's impossible. Here's why. Bam, 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 bam. How many of you have seen God do the impossible in your life? Then that is your shield of faith. Write one thing down that was impossible that he did. Don't write the story now. Bullet point. Whether it's the date and the scenario. Quick synopsis, bam. That's on my shield of faith. I'll tell you what's on mine, man. I'll tell you what. I do a line of cocaine. I slept with I don't know who that night. I offer my body as a prostitute, and the living God says, pick up your mat and walk hours later and rescues me out of those drugs. Boom! You can't tell me he doesn't love. You can't tell me that he doesn't reach down from heaven and touch somebody that everyone else rejects. You can't tell me that he doesn't accept the lost, the confused, the wicked. You can't tell me that he doesn't love the wicked as much as he loves the righteous, because I was wicked. You're right. So that's part of my shield of faith. He healed me of a fatal heart condition. He delivered me from perversion. He delivered me from depression and suicide. He delivered me from lawlessness with money. He delivered me from greed. That's what's on my shield of faith. What's on yours? He's a respecter of no man. Have you forgotten? Or are you just not paying attention to all the things that he's doing in your life? Write down one. Maybe write down two. I got 64. I got 64. That's what I got, 64. Next, by the way, no weapon forged against you will prosper. I have proof of that. I have absolute proof of that being true. No weapon forged against you will prosper. Another one, perfect love casts out all fear. I've literally gone from petrified, terrified, horrifying fear in one moment to me confessing this truth and it being gone. Gone. Not a part of my human physiology anymore. In that moment, one moment to the next. What's next? Helmet of salvation. Come on, man. What is that? As a man thinks, friends, so is he. As a man thinks, so is he. Friends, I'm attempting to help you have a point of focus leading you into the next decade that's going to have blessing and is going to have some hard times. And if you have for your own self, your own documentation about what and how he's done what he's done, now you will look at the impossible things like my wife won't let me, or my husband won't let me, or this can't happen, and this is a mess, and I'm going through abusive marriage, and I have this heart problem, and I've got cancer. What you hold up to all of this stuff is what? My belt of truth, my breastplate of righteousness, my feet shackled with peace, my shield of faith, and the helmet of my salvation. Come on, you all said you remember when he came into your life. You remember the day where there was a change that happened inside of you. David even wrote it to remind himself of his salvation. By the way, that was way before Jesus ever walked the earth. And yet he had salvation. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Where are you? Here it is. So here's my helmet of salvation. He died for me. He died for me. Therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. Therefore, that is my helmet of salvation. That when the poop storm is flying and people are watching on something and then they're going to clip a little message from a big message, take something out of context and build a case against me, therefore, there is no condemnation for those in Christ. It's somebody, come on, we live in a time and we live in a day where people can take videos and they can make you be in a place you've never been. That's very scary for somebody like myself. Very scary. That somebody can clip something, take something, put it in something completely different and make it look like it happened. It is terrible. But my helmet of salvation says, therefore, there is no condemnation for those in Christ. That whenever my past wants to start talking to me, that the shame from the things that I've done, that judgmental people love to judge ruthlessly. Two things for my helmet of salvation. Therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. No weapon forged against me. I am a new creature. I am not my yesterday. I am new today. And guess what I'll be tomorrow? New. Tomorrow. I have personally experienced this. I have experienced the mind of the Messiah. I have experienced the truth. Therefore, there is no condemnation. What he did on the cross covered that mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. I have a lot of really bad stuff behind me. A lot of ugly, disgusting things that I've touched. Places I've been. Mercy triumphs over justice. He washed me clean. My helmet of salvation says, as far as the east is from the west, he remembers no more. That's what's in my helmet of salvation. Because you would have to know, friend, that with my past, how in the world could I face you? How could I boldly speak about that? How could I face my husband? How could I face my children? How? Because of the helmet of salvation. Mercy triumphs over justice. He washed me clean. And though my sins are like scarlet, he washes me as white as a fresh snow, not the kind in Missouri that's been there for days. It's dirty. Do you understand? What does your helmet of salvation tell you? What is your personal helmet of salvation experience? Have you experienced feeling condemned? Anybody here? Yeah. Have you felt the condemnation of your sin? Have you also felt someone else trying to remind you of your sin? Painful, isn't it? But that's when the helmet of salvation says this: mercy triumphs over justice. Therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. So when that accuser or the reminder of your past or the perception of your past, because people perceive stuff all the time, and then they claim that they saw it or that it's true. People do this. In fact, I have done it. I have perceived things before that were wrong. Have you ever done that? And I passionately got behind what I perceived to be wrong. And I passionately led the charge that it was wrong. In all reality, I was wrong. So I've been on both sides, the accuser and the receiver. Any of you ever been on both sides? Mercy triumphs over justice. I have the mind of Christ. Therefore, there is no. I have been under condemnation by my own self before. And this is when I have to reach for the helmet of salvation that says this: there is no condemnation. The condemnation that says you can't possibly do that, you will not be trusted, you're not worthy. Therefore, there is no condemnation. You screwed up too many times. You used up all the get out of jail free cards.
No way.
Therefore, there is no condemnation for those in Christ. Doesn't have a measuring stick of how many that you can use. I am a new creature. Do you know that you're going to have to remind yourself who you are in this next decade? You're going to need to remind yourself who you are in this next decade, which means you're going to have to remember who you are. You're going to have to remember who you are. You have to. And you're going to have to do it over and over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. That I am a new creature. That each time the reminder of the condemnation of my decision at 18, each time of the condemnation of my decision at 24, a decision I made at 28 that I've had deep regret for, that each time that comes up in my memory, this has to be my answer. I am no longer that 18-year-old who made that decision. I am a new creature. I am no longer who I was at 23 or at 28. I'm no longer who I was at 40. I'm no longer who I was at 49 or even 50. I'm a new creature today. I am not the sum of my yesterdays, because my yesterdays have been cleansed, purified. I am restored to my rightful position as a child of the King of the universe. That's my rightful position. That's your rightful position. Being condemned is not your rightful position. Next, the sword of the Spirit. The sword of the Spirit. What is your sword of the Spirit. He says, it's the testimony of what I've overcome. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have places where you've had to overcome something really, really hard? Anybody? Yeah. Write one down. What is something that you've had to overcome that was really, really hard? What was it? Everyone has something. Is there anybody here that had to overcome alcohol addiction? Anybody? Yeah. That's your sword. I've overcome this by the truth of what is in this book. Don't mess with me. Do you understand? That's where there's a don't mess with me. And this is where you take that sword and you cut through the lies that tries to bring you back to that place. Is there anybody here that has overcome any kind of addiction? Anybody? I have. So when it wants to pop up its head or somebody wants to bring it back to you, what is it? I'm so sorry. I've already cut the ties to that. I already cut the ties to that. There's no going back. There's no going back. That is over. I severed it at its roots. What else? What have you overcome in your life? Depression. Anyone ever overcome depression? How did you overcome that depression? Yeah. With truth. With truth. Digging yourself out of that pit the same way you dug that pit for yourself. The sword of the Spirit. I told you that I'm kind of that weird person. I will speak to what I see, and I'll just start hacking at it. Like, I'll give you an example. There was somebody that was staying with us for a little season that happened to be doing drugs in our house. Didn't realize they were doing drugs in our house. I should have seen that drugs were being done in the house. All the fruit that drugs were being done in our house was like right there and totally evident. But in my mind, I'm like, nah, not them. So here you move yourself into somebody else's house for a season and you're doing drugs in that house? Who do you think you are? Especially this house. So I started to sense something. And I started to pray like, God, what is that? And I saw sorcery, which is actually drugs. Oh, okay. So I started to curse that very thing with truth. Sorcery, you're not allowed in this house. You know what my sword of the Spirit is? He has given us the keys to the kingdom of heaven. That which you bind on earth is bound in heaven. That which is loosed on earth is loosed in heaven. That's part of my sword. That I have authority, you have authority. We have authority in him, that if we believe in him, everything that Jesus did, we have access to do the same thing. We have authority over the principalities of darkness of this world in the heavenlies and right here in the physical manifestation of it. So if something's not right, I'm going to speak to the thing that's not right. Even though the thing is invisible, I'm taking the sword of the Spirit and I'm taking the keys to the kingdom of heaven and I'm taking authority over myself and over my physical property and saying, enough. Enough. The power of the living God is in you and it's in me. Are you utilizing that with the sword of the Spirit to cut through the doo-doo storm? Somebody abusing you, somebody abusing drugs, somebody abusing your money, somebody abusing you mentally, emotionally, bullying you at work. Have you ever been bullied before? Okay? So this is when it's like, hold the phone. Not today. Not today. That's my personal sword of the Spirit. Where if I see it, and this is the fruit that I'm seeing, no more. We're not going to play this game anymore. This is the line right here. You play by these rules, and that's it, dude. Out. Not allowed to be here. Guess what happened? So I start praying against the spirit of sorcery. Guess what happened? They picked up and moved out. Moved right out. Bye. It's just not allowed in my house. Not going to happen. Not on my watch. Not happening. That's total dishonor and total disrespect. And that's the fruit that I saw, was dishonor and disrespect. And then everything else came out. Found the use of the drugs. Okay? Sword of Spirit. So that's it. Friends, that's what I'm going to be walking in. By the way, sorry, let me give you this one about peace too. Proverbs 16:7, when a man's ways please Yahweh, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Proverbs 16:7. When a man's ways please Yahweh, he makes even his enemies be at peace with him. So I want to close with this. We're going to have amazing times in this next decade. I can't wait to experience those. We're going to meet new people. Can't wait to meet those new people. We're going to have new relationships. We're going to have new experiences, new adventures, and we're also going to have some hurricanes, some earthquakes, and some storms. Those things come along with all of the territory. For me personally, my personal plan is to guard myself with the armor that I just shared with you and to cling tightly to it. My goal is to cling tightly to it consciously in a daily basis so that I'm not blindsided when all of a sudden the weather changes. Who here lives in Texas? Does the weather change? You know what they say about Texas? They say if you don't like the weather, just hang around a little bit, it's about to change. And that really is the truth. It really is. We can go from 20 degrees to 87, all in within a 24 to 48 hour period. No joke. Say again, 12 degrees? Oh, in 12 hours, yes. I've seen it happen in 12 hours also. No joke. Like you wake up, it's warm, it's beautiful, it's sunny, out of nowhere, whoom, here comes the cold front, and now you're like, it's winter again. No joke. I have personally seen in this state 4 seasons all in a single day. All 4 seasons in one day. People are funny. You're like, oh no, I live in the Northeast where we have 4 seasons. Well, I live in Texas where we have 4 seasons show up in a single day. Put that one on. We have all 4 seasons too. Sometimes all in one day. So those seasons are coming. The goal is that I have practice with my helmet of salvation when I don't need it. That I've practiced with my shield of faith when I don't need it. Because real warriors make sure that their armor is ready. Do you understand? They make sure they can fit into their armor. Do you understand what I'm saying? They make sure they can fit into their armor. They're not like, oh, okay, there it is, and there they are with their Bud Light and their barbecued chicken. Forget it, their brisket. They got their brisket and some, Lone Star beer. And here comes the war. It's like, no. If you're wearing your armor daily, it fits when you're in the storm. It's when we get lazy that we have forgotten what each one of those items actually stand for. So in and out of the season, we have to be ready for what's to come. So how many of you are excited about the new adventures you're going to experience in the next decade? Right? But wouldn't it be great that you'd be excited for the next storm? Did you hear me? Wouldn't it be amazing if you were ready for the next storm? That's how warriors are. Warriors are ready for the next storm. They're ready for it. They're not afraid. It's like, I want to see the military guys and gals. Military, where are you? Anyone that's ever fought in any kind of war, any kind of battle, militarily, okay? Is there a sense of fear? But you have an answer for it. And you're ready for it, and you're prepared for it. Can I have the military people stand up? It's awesome. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. But when we are not engaged, knowing a battle is coming, we're not ready for it. So don't get lazy in 2020. Don't get lazy from 2020 to 2029. Don't get lazy in this next decade. Be ready. Be ready. Have the sword sharp. Have the helmet sparkling. The breastplate polished. The belt fitting. Shoes polished. Military guys, isn't that what you have to do? You cannot show up with your armor, your uniform, messy, pressed. It has to be pressed. You have to show up. So in 2020, show up. Show up and be ready to fight. Not just for yourself, but for your family. Not just for your family, but for your community. Not just for your community, but the overall team that you're a part of, which is God's team. Be ready. Be alert. Because there is a plan against you. And don't be afraid. Why? It's part of the deal. Part of the deal with blessing is caca. It comes with the territory. There's no blessing that comes without caca. It is true. How many of you thought that blessing came without caca? Come on, where are you? You found out that blessing comes with caca. Take both. Clean up the one. Okay? All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for your love. Thank you for your truth. Oh, man. Yeah. Thank you that you give us a way out. Thank you, God, that when we cry, you really, really, really answer. Like, you really, really answer. Each and every time that every one of us have cried out that prayer, like, if you really bail me out of this one, and then you do, you end up bailing us out. Each and every time. Thank you, Father, for the hope of our salvation. Thank you, Father, that you've given us the chance at a new decade. Some of us will get to finish the decade. Some of us get to go home. Wow. Yeah. I want you guys to stand up on your feet. It's really sweet of you to honor my request. And I want us together to cry out to him, dedicating this next decade to him. So just say this after me. Father, I heard your message, and I'm sorry. I didn't have my breastplate of righteousness polished and ready to go when I needed it in the last decade. My sword was kind of dull. My helmet was messy. Forgot to put my shoes on several times, heading straight into battles and wars. But I'm committing to you tonight. To make a conscious effort to wear the belt of truth. My truth, my truthful experience I've had with you. And more truthful experiences I will have with you. I'm making a commitment tonight to do things better than the way I did it in the last decade. Forgive me for my immaturity, stepping on a battlefield and whining that I got hurt. Forgive me for being surprised when I've been stabbed. I didn't have my armor on. Forgive me for blaming you when I should have taken responsibility. Father, forgive me for the times I've gotten lazy with my faith. Forgive me for all the things I have forgotten. All the good things that you've brought into my life. All the times you showed up. And the times you showed off. So many I have forgotten. Forgive me for not honoring you. So I commit my ways to you this night, January 24th, 2020. I commit my money to you, my heart to you, my hands to you, my feet to you. My eyes, ears, mouth. I give you my mind, even though it's filled with so much junk. I hand it over to you. I commit this next decade, my skills and lack thereof, to you. I'm excited, God, about the adventures that we're going to go on. And I want to be prepared to fight valiantly in your army for what is right, what is just, what is good, what is noble, what is pure, what is praiseworthy. Father, I commit my family to you and my influence to you. Father, I also give you all my failures from the last decade and the one before that. Actually, the one before that too. I release it to you. And I also give you all the failures that I've experienced on behalf of other people. I give you my shame. I don't want to take it with me into this next decade. Everything I'm ashamed of. Everything I'm hiding from. Everything I'm not willing to bring into your light. Do you know it's impossible to see without light? That which you're keeping in darkness. That stuff you're hiding is in darkness. if you want clear 2020 vision, it's got to come into the light. Right now is a good time. You're standing in his presence, the presence of his mercy that triumphs over justice. You're standing in his presence where mercy triumphs over justice. He requires mercy over sacrifice. His love never fails. His love endures forever. His love covers a multitude of sins. If you want to no longer hide that which is in darkness, right now is your chance. I'm not saying you won't have another chance, but I'm saying right now is a good time. If you're feeling that tug on your heart and you know you've got some stuff that you've got hiding, stuff from your past, shame, stuff that you maybe have been buried under, deep, deep regrets. Listen to me. Deep regrets. Now's a good time to make it right with him. Don't bring it with you into 2020. You want clear vision. You got to bring that which is hiding into the light between you and him. Between you and him. So let's take that opportunity to do that right now. Okay? You can do it right where you're at if you want, or you can come up closer here to the stage if you want. You can do whatever you want. You can stay right where you're at, or you can move to a different place. It's up to you. Whatever it is that you're ashamed of, don't bring shame with you into this next decade. That is courage, woman. That is courage. Yeah. Come on. There's more of you. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Take courage. Do not fear, for he is with you. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. His mercy endures forever. His mercy is right here, right now. Take courage. Take courage. It takes courage to bring your shame into the light. Yes. 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 Don't take it into the next decade. The shame of the strip clubs, the shame of the hidden porn addiction, the shame of hiding alcohol, the shame of your debt, the shame of dishonor and disrespect, the shame of the physical abuse, the shame of the emotional abuse, the shame of the rape, the shame of the molestation. All the things that you've said, if people ever found this out. All of those things that if you ever ran for president one day, you wouldn't want to come to the surface. All of those things. Right now, this is the time to bring every one of those. The adultery, every addiction, the secret hatred, the envy, that which that you are hiding and you don't want to hide anymore, but you want it in the light. The lying, masturbation, the sex addiction. And it doesn't have to be big. You know, some of us, we beat ourselves up so big with things that are relatively small. There's no shame too big for him. Shame brings fear. Shame of feeling like you're not enough, that you're not good enough, not pretty enough, not good looking enough, not strong enough. The shame you've been carrying that you don't matter. It weakens us. The shame of fearing being weak. The shame of our mistakes. The shame of how we've treated our kids. The shame of not being a perfect parent or a perfect spouse. The shame of not being a perfect friend, a perfect daughter, a perfect son. The shame of not getting it right. The shame of perfection at work. The shame of judging people. The shame of judging ourselves. The shame of jealousy. The shame of pressure, of living up to expectations put on by other people, whether they verbalized them or not. The shame of the hidden thoughts of what you wish you could do to somebody. The shame of the anger. The shame of being human. The shame of your skin color. The shame of your race. The shame of sickness. The shame of disease. The shame of feeling stupid. The shame of doing stupid things. The shame of not living up to your potential yet. The shame of letting people down. The shame of not leading by the right example. The shame of failing your church community. The shame of failing your siblings. The shame of not getting it right. The shame of not seeking him more. The shame of not being faithful. The shame of not being trustworthy in weak moments. The shame of humiliation and embarrassment. The shame of screwing up too many times. The shame of drunkenness. The The shame of no self-control. The shame of not being a good friend. Father, you are so good. Thank you that your mercy triumphs over justice. We deserve the wages of our sin. But you sent your son to pay the full price for our shame. You sent your son. That's how much you love us. You sent your son to cover our shame of the wicked words that have fallen from our mouths. All the times we purposely try to hurt somebody. All the times we haven't cared about people enough. All the times we've lashed out to the people that we love instead of reaching out. Father, we give you our shame. We give you our shame. In exchange for your mercy and your love, we give you. Just say this after me. God, I give you my shame. I give you my shame of not measuring up. I give you my shame. I'm convincing myself that I'm not enough. I give you the shame of believing man's words and man's opinion over yours. I give you the shame of trying to please people that cannot be pleased. I give you my shame. The shame of trying to be you when I am not you. I'm not worthy of your position, but I am worthy of mine. I'm your offspring, an heir to your throne. I give you my shame for failing you, not setting a good example. I'm sorry for hiding. It's a prison I've built. I don't want to be in it anymore. Forgive me for picking up shame instead of the sword of the Spirit. Forgive me for wearing shame instead of a belt of truth. Forgive me for putting on shame instead of shackling my feet with peace and the breastplate of righteousness and the helmet of salvation. Forgive me for leading with my shame instead of the shield of faith and the sword of the Spirit.
for coming under shame, bowing down to shame, and holding its voice in your position. I receive truth that there is no condemnation for me right now. The full price. The full price for my sin has been paid for. The full price for my shame has been paid for. Say, shame, I don't need you anymore. I remove you from my life. I remove you and command you to leave me alone. I'm not yours. I will not bow down to you. I will not listen to you. You're no longer useful in my life. Shame, take your hands off of my finances, off of my reputation. Come out of my mind, off of my hands, out of my heart, my soul, my feet. I don't wear your shoe size anymore. It was a little tight. Go back to hell where you belong. That is your destiny, shame. I am not your destiny. My destiny is with my Father, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the all-knowing, the all-powerful, living God. That's my destiny. Father, redeem the time that has been lost and that has been given over to shame. Redeem the finances that have been wasted in shame, shameful places, shameful things. Redeem what has been wasted with time. Redeem what has been wasted with my health. Redeem what has been wasted in relationships. Wow. Can you see all the places that shame has touched? Can you see it? It's crazy, isn't it? Redeem the opportunities that I passed up because of shame. Redeem the relationships that have been lost due to shame. The shame I took on. The shame I bowed down to, that I am no longer bowing down to. Yeah. Redeem my emotions. Set them right, balance, and in good health. Yes. Give me emotional health, mental health, spiritual health, physical health. Yes. In all of the places where shame was robbing me. You go ahead and just begin to thank him. You begin. Yeah. Thank you, Father, for your redemption. You always redeem. You always redeem. Yeah. You always redeem. Redeemer is here, redeeming time, money, relationships, work opportunities, redeeming adventures that haven't been taken because of shame. So right now, in the name of Yahweh, in the name of his son, Yeshua, which means salvation, in the name of Ruach HaKodesh, which means the Holy Spirit, the set-apart Spirit, I bless you with everything that is in the heavens to be a blessing to you. I bless your 2020 through 2029, this next decade, to be a year of clear vision, clarity of mind, to be a year of clarity of understanding who you are in him. I bless you with all of the promises that come from heaven and the throne room of Yahweh, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Every blessing to prosper your ways. I bless you in your going and I bless you in your coming. I bless the work of your hands. I bless your eyes to see him active in your life. I bless your ears to hear his voice of direction, his voice of encouragement, his voice of motivation and inspiration. I bless you with the gifts of the Spirit, the gift of prophecy, to be able to see what is yet to come and to prepare yourself for it. I bless you with words of knowledge, words of wisdom, words of understanding. The words of understanding, which means application, to intimately know a new thing, to intimately know the skills in which you are learning here this weekend. By the practicing of it, I bless you with the grace that comes from the Elohim of Israel. That's the God of Israel. The grace, the unmerited favor, the same favor that was given to the children of Israel as they were leaving bondage, as they were leaving their decades of being in Egypt. As they were leaving, they had favorable disposition that the Egyptians took off their gold bracelets, the rings from their nose, their ears. They took the rings off their fingers and gave it to the Israelites and blessed them. I bless you with the blessing of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I bless you right now in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, that is Jesus the Messiah. I bless you with all of the promises he brought, all of the teachings that he brought, that they would bind to your very soul. As he taught the Torah, he taught light. I bless you with being the light to the world, a light on a hill for all the world to see, that they will praise the Father in heaven for the good work in which they see you do. Yes. I bless your health and the health of your family. I bless your body to come in right standing with the word of the living God. Yes. I bless this next decade to be easier than the last decade, that the burden is easy and his way is easy. His burden is light. Yes. I bless you with the miracles that have been documented and all those that have not. The word says clearly that if they were able to document all of the miracles in which they saw Yeshua do in his time, that there would not be enough books, that the books would cover the entire earth over and over and over again. Miles and miles and thousands of miles of documented miracles. I bless you with the miracle working power, the resurrection power of the living God dwelling inside of you. I bless you with liberty, freedom, that where there is freedom, there is the Spirit of the living God. Yes. I bless you with the courage that comes from heaven. Yes. Yes. I bless you with innovation and creativity that raises you up in the marketplace and in your home. I bless you with great adventures. I bless you with that faith like a child has, that can dance before people completely unashamed. Yes. I bless you with the indignified spirit that King David had as he danced naked before his kingdom. And same with King Saul. Undignified. I bless you with the boldness that the righteous have, the boldness which is as bold as a lion. Yes, the boldness that you will need in this next decade. Yes. I bless you with the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, and self-control, falling from heaven directly into your soul right now. I bless you with a deep, passionate love and intimate connection with other human beings, but most importantly, with the living God. Yes. I bless your feet, that where you go, you take dominion over all territory for the kingdom of heaven. Yes. Yes. I bless you with the authority of Yeshua that dwells in you, the authority to trample on the serpent and the scorpion, to refute every lie and false accusation that comes against you. Yes,
I bless your children's children's children with everything that has been mentioned and everything that has not been mentioned. Yes. Yes. I bless you with the beauty of the living God, that you carry yourself with that beauty, standing strong in that beauty. I bless you with his strength and his might. I bless you with the strategies of heaven. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I bless you with the gift of worship and a heart and a desire to worship him. Yes. I bless you with the gift of righteousness, which is what you're in right this minute, right standing with him. I bless you with the gift of justice, that the scales will be perfect to deal with every one of your cases. Yes. And I bless you with peace. Peace to your finances, peace to your heart, peace to your health, peace to your relationships, peace to your work. Yes. I bless you with greater influence that comes straight from heaven into your soul. Great influence that is not merited by your works, but in addition to your works. Yes. I bless you with promotions in this next decade. Promotions in the areas of your longings. Bless your mind to be clear. Yes. I bless you with more measures of faith. Yes. I bless you with the counsel of heaven. Yes. I bless you with the gift of forgiveness. Bless you with intimacy, courage, bravery, yes. To not shrink back, but to push ahead in confidence. I bless you with the confidence of heaven, backing you, carrying you, lifting you, standing you. Bless you with the gift of acceptance, necessary for this next decade. I bless you with the influence that your influence is safe, trustworthy, honorable, helpful. Yes. I bless you with new relationships that are divine. God, as you gave me my friend Mona,
friend, and you brought it. Father, I pray that these precious people will have the gift of new relationships that are mutually encouraging, that are mutually trustworthy, that are mutually vulnerable, that are mutually faithful, mutually loving, mutually kind, mutually courageous, mutually adventurous. Bring new, amazing Jonathan and David relationships, Barnabas and Saul relationships, Timothy and Saul relationships. Yeshua and Mary Magdalene relationships. Relationships where there's no shame. Relationships where there's no fear. Yes. I bless your marriages to be fearless. I bless your marriages. Yes. To be filled with mercy. And healthy companionship. You said that whatever we ask in your name, that you would give it. You said that you hear the cry of the righteous. We are not righteous because we are good. We are righteous because we believe. So according to your standards, hear us now and bless us. Raise us up for this next decade to see wild and crazy things. Exceed our expectations. You're the one that said that if we would humble ourselves and pray, that you would hear from heaven. You would heal our land. You would heal our land. Heal our homes. Heal our communities. Heal our governments. Heal our churches. Heal our businesses. Heal the people inside of them. Heal the orphan. Heal the widow. Heal the child with leukemia. You said that we could ask for whatever we wish. Whatever we wish that exceeds needs. You also said that you would exceed our expectations. That's what you said. That's what you said. Let us reach with greater faith and boldly come as you tell us to, boldly come before your throne of mercy and grace, and to ask with a crazy level of courage. Let us see the impossible. Let us see families restored. Let's see businesses redeemed. Let's see finances that have been wasted for decades redeemed. You said, out of Moshe's mouth, you said, in Deuteronomy 8:18, this is what you said, that it is I who have given you power to create wealth. That's what you said. You said you're not a respecter of any person, and there was a bunch of jacked up people hearing that message. Just as right here standing before you, we are under the blood of Yeshua, made righteous by his blood because we believe. So we're asking that in this next decade, that you give us the power to create wealth. Father, I ask that for every single person who is here that has been longing, deeply longing to be single no more, answer the cry of their heart. Answer the cry of their heart. Prepare them now for that great journey. Father, for every womb that has not been opened, whether blanks are being shot or she's infertile, you know who they are. Redeem the womb and the shot. And remove the shame that comes from that. Father, all of those who have such a deep desire to be active in that way, even in their more mature age, Father, I pray that you redeem all the working parts, that all the working parts work beautifully to still enjoy that beautiful part of their life. I bless you with joy that comes from heaven. Let this be a decade of great joy, because with clarity, joy comes. Yes. With a clear vision, joy comes. For the joy of Yahweh is your strength. For the joy of Yahweh is my strength. Joy. His joy, not ours. His joy. Can't imagine. His joy.
As we close here tonight, stay in that place of receiving blessing. For everyone that is within the reach of the sound of my voice, stay right there. Yahweh commanded Moses to call Aaron and the people together. And he said, place my blessing upon my people. This is to be a statute throughout your generations, forever and ever. In Hebrew, le'olam va'ed. So as you are in that place of blessing, hear all the beautiful things that were spoken. They are from your Father's mouth, from your lips to our ears. Abba. So as we close, receive the blessing of the Lord that is commanded to be given to his people. Yevorechecha Adonai ve'is mirecha Yair Adonai panav elecha vichunecha Is Adonai panav V'yasem lecha shalom. Yahweh will bless you, and Yahweh will keep you. Yahweh will make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahweh will forever lift up his face to you, and he will forever give you his peace. Shalom and shalom. Amen.